immemorial, women have birthed life, shaped character, and by extension, influenced the society. Moremi of Ife, Emoten of Benin, Queen Aminat of Zaria, all women of influence and power.
Whether it's before election, after election.
How ironical. Women being so powerful, yet have few grounds in decision making.
They see you as weak, and I see you as a wife to a man.
We are talking women in politics.
A woman will be bold enough to stand up and say, I want to become president of Nigeria.
Only on Core TV News.
Thanks for joining us again. The 1999 Constitution has been a subject of debate for many concerned Nigerians. Of course, the Constitution is set to start with "We the people of the Federal Republic of Nigeria." Many of a different school of thought are of the opinion that the content of this constitution do not really reflect the yearning and the aspirations of the Nigerian people. So we've had issues of constitution review, constitution not changed, something must be done. Of course, you hear about bills being adopted, amended every other day. But the big question now is what happens to the national conference that was just being concluded, even now as the Senate and the House of Reps are also getting set to give their verdict as regards the constitution review. Of course, the highlights yesterday of the conference report of the review of the 1999 Constitution adopted certain of these issues on the 1999 Constitution. Well, we on the show today, we're going to find out how all of these adoptions, how all of these amendments would affect the ordinary Nigerian and which way really forward for this dear country. I'm joined in our live studio here in Lagos by Biodun Showumi, good public affairs analyst. Thank you very much, Biodun, for finding time to join us.
It's my pleasure to be here.
I want us to start from the genesis of all of these. Many have condemned the content of the 1999 Constitution, and many are of the opinion that possibly that's where most of our problems as a nation arose for. Are you of the opinion that it is the Constitution that is lacking behind, or the people and the leadership, the quality of leadership that we have in Nigeria?
Yeah, it's both ways. It's both the Constitution, which is the guiding document for rules of engagement, you know, interpersonal rules of engagement, and society, government engagement, and also the quality of the leadership that we have. If you have a ruinous leadership, they are bound to exploit, you know, the weakness of the Constitution, you know, to their own advantage. On the other hand, if you have a disciplined leadership, they probably will not think of exploiting the weaknesses of the Constitution. So, consequently, if you don't get the Constitution right, you will now be running on good luck, hoping that you won't have bad leadership, you know, that would exploit the weaknesses. So when you look at some of the provisions of the Constitution, you will see that many of those provisions, you know, in terms of the functions of the state government and the federal government seems to be duplicated one way or the other, and in some cases the federal government has been loaded with so many responsibility in a federation, almost making it a unitary form of government. It's not surprising because the military actually midwifed that constitution, and Nigerians did not see it in 1999 before voting. No political party saw it. We were just told to hold faith and just believe that things will be okay. So we voted, we elected officials before we saw the Constitution on which the election was conducted, only to realize that there were so many functions ascribed to federal government at the expense of the state. Okay. Then you have others where both of them can exercise concurrent responsibility. Let me give you a good example, the film industry, you know, where the federal government have its own regulatory role, and also the state governments are able to exercise it. So basically, if you're not careful, you can have your film censored, you know, in all the 36 states of the federation if you want them to view there. So basically, it shouldn't have involved the federal government in the first instance. And there are so many like that, you know, inside
Just
that
a minute, Beardo. We're now being joined by a legal practitioner on telephone. Good morning, Wale Ogwade.
Good morning, how are you?
Yeah, good morning to you and welcome to Core Digest. Let's quickly take you up on the Constitution report of the review of the 1999 Constitution adopted yesterday by the Senate. One of the issues here is that presidential assent will no longer be required to amend any section of the Constitution if this clause is endorsed by President Goodluck Jonathan. Do you think this is a welcome development in relation to the much talked about presidential system that is being run in Nigeria?
Well, to me, it's an innovation, and I think it will work well. You know, we remember that along the line, Nigerians have been denied the opportunity of a new, of an amendment constitution. Right. The Nigerian people have been denied that right. So, with all the sense and purposes, I think it's okay. If you remember, during the Obasanjo era, and even during the Jonathan era, he refused to assent to some bill, which the National Assembly passed. And I think it's in that instance, and that's the reason why they removed that clause, because to all intents and purposes, a popular bill or a popular law may not become law if the president is not assent to it. Maybe because the president has some issues related to that. But with this one now, the law has been passed by the National Assembly. And don't forget that the National Assembly, particularly the House of Representatives, are the representative of the people. So if they make any law by virtue of the constitutional powers given to them to make laws for the good governance of this country, then definitely they are in the right path. And of course, if they do it that if the president refuses to give assent to it, fortunately I'm sure it's not absolute. They'll give the president some time. I guess the time lag of 90 days or so.
Yeah.
If we refuse to assent to it, then of course it now becomes automatic that you're passing and it becomes law.
Another highlight of the report adopted is that the Senate, there's now a provision that confers immunity on legislators in respect of words spoken or written in the exercise of their legislative duties. At a time where many are even calling for the removal of immunity on the executive, it looks as if the legislators are also tolling that path. What are your reactions in that? On that.
The line was breaking, but maybe you correct me if I'm talking off key. I want to believe you said that you talked about the immunity clause.
Exactly.
Okay then. Obviously, to me, immunity is neither here nor there. You see, one of the want to serve the people, it is for you to know that you are here as a trustee, because public office is a trust office. And of course, serving the people, you know that to go there serve with all intent and purposes and with all of honesty. And of course, whatever it is that is criminal in your mind will be thrown out. But again, the immunity thing is just to protect in the course of your work as a legislature or as a governor or as a president. To me, it's neither here or there. Both ways, you can't escape it. If you are while you are in office, when you leave office, you'll be there to answer for your cause. And that's why I like the police plan of the police. That no matter how, the very long arm of the law will be there to catch up with you. So, immunity or no immunity, the law will catch up with you. And of course, to some extent too, the law does not die in some cases. And of course, even if you want to die, because of that immunity clause, the law will begin to take effect until your immunity clause is removed from you. So, both ways, they are all losers. The fundamental thing is that you do things right, so that at the end of the day, posterity will not forget you.
But even in the light of that, Wale Ogwade, for instance, the case of the incumbent governor of Ekiti now, who after he was impeached from office, had a case with EFCC for over 8 years. That case, you and I know what happened to it. Would you say that the long arm of the law has actually been able to catch up with our executives even after they leave office and leave the protection of the immunity?
Don't worry. You see, this is an evolving thing. This is another different scenario that you just created, which you all know. And of course, we are working on it as lawyers. We are working on it as activists. And whichever way, I mean, all these are activities that happened before the man became governor. And of course, don't forget that he has another issue, the eligibility issue on his neck. And the law is clear. Immunity protects you when you are in office. So any conduct that you do, or anything you do before you get into office, you're not covered by immunity. If you run into an office, that does not mean that you don't have to question. The issue, the immunity clause in Section 308 is that indeed you are protected from the public view and pride when you are in office, not before and not after.
It's all right.
So get there, it's evolving. All these issues, we continue to look at it. The EFCC case, we want to see, and then will this enter in knowledge against him? Will the eligibility test case, will it be struck out? Will it be discontinued? All these things are still on ground. So let us see.
It's all right. Most of the highlights.
Even if he completes his term in totality, at least he will complete his term one day. And of course, that does not mean the law will not go after him.
It's all right. We have to let you go now, but if you notice that most of the highlights discussed in this constitution, in this conference report of the Constitutional Review, is almost the same thing with what we had at the National Conference. How do we justify them at this point? Because some people have even said that possibly the National Conference was just a waste of time and an outright duplication of the functions of the National Assembly.
Well, my own take, and I will not debate for him, is that the National Conference is a jamboree just put up by Jonathan, just for him to score some political points. As far as I'm concerned, the National Conference is illegal because we run a democratic system, we run a constitutional government. And before you do anything, you must have a legal backing. There's no legal backing for the Constitutional Conference. The man just woke up one day and said, yes, we'll have a Constitutional Conference, inaugurated it. Yes, because it's the president does not mean he can do anything. The law is there to be followed. If you don't have a law, you can't just do anything. If you do anything, it's illegal. And you are all a witness now. The other day, even the INEC that has the power to register a political party, the court says that you don't have the power to register. Well, I don't do anything anyhow. That's why I tell anybody who cares for this thing that we run a constitutional government, and if you don't follow that constitution, if you do anything outside that constitution, that's why we go to court and it's declared unconstitutional. So to me, I have no problem. The National Conference, they just went there to drink tea and to take money. That's all. The National Assembly that has the right, they have the power to amend the constitution. Let them amend the constitution and let's see what comes out of it. But again, in making a new constitution, they have no power to make a constitution because the National Assembly are not elected to make constitution. They are elected to make law. It is the people that have the right to make a constitution of themselves. So anybody who thinks or is pretending that they have the power to make a constitution is just deceiving himself.
Wale Guade, thank you very much for your contribution on the show this morning. Good to have you join us. Now, back to you, Biodun Showumi. He is of the opinion that the National Conference was just a jamboree put in place by Mr. President. What are your reactions? What are your own thinking along that line?
Yeah, that may as well be, but I have gone through the documents prepared by the National Conference. There are so many far-reaching recommendations right inside it that I think we need to embrace. Let me give you some examples. The issue of mines, being transferred back to the states, because how can you, the federal government, be in control of mines? The issue of water resources and quite a lot of other provisions have been looked into. The creation of state police, to avoid the situation we have currently. We've seen how the federal government is using the state police, which is highly ineffectual, and it's the state governments that are funding it. So there are so many important recommendations that we should not just simply wish it away. And it will be the closest we would have to true federalism. I may not necessarily agree with all the provisions. There may be one or two areas which I believe they didn't touch, or maybe they did forge it together. But even if we adopt those recommendations alone, we'll be a lot closer to true federalism than the present situation which we have. Jonathan may have contrived the National Conference for his own purposes, but I only look at the outcome, what came out of it.
Some of the most interesting parts of this highlights are the issues that has to do with electoral processes, especially as we count down to 2015. There's this point of independent candidature Do you see that seeing the light of the day in a country where politics is so expensive, and then you even hear presidential aspirants of a particular political party paying close to 27.5 billion naira to get a nomination form? Apart from the political structures, do you think Nigeria is ripe for such a candidate who will fund himself and come out alone without any political help? I mean, political parties help.
Yes, it is possible. It's just strange that it is only in Nigeria that we think that except you belong to a political party, you cannot choose to be on your own. You cannot stand and say, look, this is my community. I am not interested in political party. What I'm interested in, I live in Magodo, and I only want to represent the interest of the people of Magodo in Lagos State House of Assembly. You should be able to do that. That is the standard practice worldwide. So introducing independent candidacy, which is also part of the provisions of the confab, which they are now talking about, you know, is a welcome development. There are people who feel strongly. You can say, look, I only want to be a councillor and just for my area alone. Why can't you be? You know, you're not going to need a lot of money to do that. Okay. If you are popular and you are well known and people think you are acceptable locally, of course, you will easily come in.
Interestingly, the lawmakers accepted Section 223, which empowers the INEC to deregister political parties. One, for non-fulfillment of certain conditions, such as breach of registration requirements, failure to secure a win, either a presidential, governorship, local government chairmanship, or a seat in the National or State Assembly.
Yeah, what we're trying to do.
How do you react to that?
I feel on no account should INEC deregister any political party. The simple reason is clear. A political party is an association, a political association. The Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria guarantees freedom of association. Okay. So also, you know, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And therefore, for me, it is a breach of that right. You cannot curtail people's right to form their own association. You can refuse. INEC can refuse to engage with them, but INEC is supposed to be an impartial umpire. Okay. So what is the business of INEC making such value judgment? What they can simply say is that, look, if you don't win a political office, we will not fund you. You know, there are certain money given to political parties, you will not be entitled to it. But to say you are deregistering a political association, where on earth do they get that kind of power from? And if that power is in the Constitution, you know, in the Electoral Act, it is a gross violation of the fundamental rights to freedom of association.
In a political system whereby the most prominent parties that we have out of a whole possibly 40 or 50 are just about 2 or 3 in a political system whereby certain political parties are not at all relevant at any stage of election. In most cases, we even see them, they don't field presidential candidates, they join hands with other parties. So what relevance are they after all?
Yeah, the problem is, again, the Electoral Act, which made a provision that before a political party can be registered, you must have a national presence, that is, be present in 2/3 of the states, have your head office in Abuja. And as long as you do that, you make it so expensive that even if people manage to scale that hurdle of, you know, registering the party, they will not have the means to continue, you know, to sustain it or to maintain it. And it's one of the major problems. We have over-monetized the political space. We need to now demonetize the political space in a way that either poor or rich or old can find meaningful representation within the political space in this country. And that is what we need to do. One of the best ways to do that is first to remove the power of INEC to deregister political parties. 2, to remove that provision that you must have your office in Abuja. I don't need an office in Abuja. If I want to represent people in Mushin, my office should be in Mushin, not in Abuja. I have no business with Abuja. My interest is just Mushin. What are they going to do? Are they going to tell independent candidates, you know, if it finally scaled the whole order, to now go and open an office in Abuja, independent office in Abuja first, before contesting in Shomolu, you know, in Lagos? It's highly unreasonable. So part of the thing is we need to look at the Electoral Act, we need to look at the Constitution, ensure that the Electoral Act does not breach the Constitution. Of course, any breach of the Constitution by the Electoral Act is, you know, the Constitution reigns supreme. It's clear. It's just that Nigerians don't have the culture of challenging, you know, the violations of their right. I was very pleased when I read the judgment of the Hope party, that won, they defeated INEC. People should go to court and challenge all these things we inherited from the military, thinking one institution can stay in Abuja and curtail my rights to represent my people in Mushin. What is my business with Abuja? I only want to represent the poor people of Mushin.
It's all right. As we begin to round up this segment, let's quickly touch on this issue of autonomy for local government. This section talks about making local governments a full third-tier government by creating Office of the Auditor General of the local government, as well as the State Local Government Service Commission. In a situation whereby there are even some local government chairmen who are accused of not staying put in their local government. It's either you find them at the city centers, at the state capitals, and then a structure where much of the funds is going to the executives. Would you still buy this idea of local governments going independent?
Look, we have exposed ourselves to the whole world again. And that worries me about this country. We exhibit ignorance, with arrogance. What is the business of federal government or state government with local government? Do you know how local governments are formed worldwide? Look, in America, there is an estate with just about 200 houses. There is a local government. The local government has no business collecting funding from Abuja. So why would Abuja wants to regulate local government? You can have if the people, for instance, of VGC or the people of Mushin decide that, look, we want to have a local government, you can only set the rules to say, one, you must prove to us that it will be democratic or you have civil structures. Okay. You must be able to fund it. And then you must have competent, people to manage it and all that. Once they fulfill that criteria, and the people on finance, the people can now decide and say, look, we are willing to pay what they call tenement rate or council tax, like as it's called in UK, you might levy each houses as long as they are willing to pay the funds to manage the affairs of that local area. They must be recognized that this is the real tradition of local government formation. It has happened in this country before. When we now think we have to decree the creation of local government, and then they have to come to Abuja, it's still negating the basic principles of, of federalism, true federalism and democracy. The issue should be that local governments should exist in line with whether people should fund it. It is an anomaly that local government is being considered a third tier of government. They should not be. And it is also an anomaly that they collect from federal allocation. Local government have no business going to Abuja. Local governments are funded by the local people. That is why they are accountable to the local people in their own areas. On refuse, on managing their local primary schools, on managing their environment, it is their business. And it's funded, from levies on each houses in each area. So it baffles me when you see this kind of things coming out from our National Assembly, which is supposed to be made up of probably our most enlightened people. They should go to other parts of the world. They've been traveling. They should go and find out how these things are done. If you want to practice democracy, is either we practice it the way it's done. If you want to practice federalism, you must do it the way it's done and obey all the rules, governing it.
Very show with me. Thank you very much for finding time to join us today.
It's my pleasure.
Core Digest. Of course, we'll continue our discussion on the Constitution review. Hopefully tomorrow we'll be open to be joined by local government chairman as we discuss this autonomy of the local government. There are also several other issues as regards adopted referendum for state creation. I wish we were going to have time to discuss that. We hope you join us subsequently to find more time to discuss this. We'll take a break now. When we come back, we'll be discussing the ceasefire deal between the federal government and the Boko Haram sect. Don't go away.
You can now watch Core TV News live from anywhere in the world on our website www.coretvnews.com. Click on Live TV on our website and watch us live.
And welcome to Core TV Primetime Days.
To follow us on Twitter, click on Twitter icon on our website. On Facebook, click on the Facebook and YouTube to see all our previous news production. You can also watch us live on YouTube. Click Core TV, leave a space, then News. Core TV News, a 24-hour news station.